recently had a lesson with ProChara on stream. Highly recommend, link to his Metafy account in the description. And he made me rethink some ideas I had about a concept that I like to teach. In a previous video I've put out, I talk about knowing the objective line, that is, the path a team pushes forward or back on as they gain or lose control of more of the map. In that video, a player I was coaching starts getting pressured and retreats in a direction that ends up putting them closer to the enemy team instead of further away, because they're not thinking about the general direction opponents are likely to come from. I advise that they advance forward on the objective line and retreat backward on it, and up until this point I've generally followed that principle in my own play. But Chara brought up that there are some weapon rolls and situations where retreating along the objective line is actually more dangerous and more likely to give the other team a lot of control. What I'd failed to consider before is that you often have options for moving away from the advancing enemy team that don't also move you closer to the objective they're trying to push toward.
If you back up here and let's say let's say the splash here chases you and kills you. I know they're in a crab right now, but like for instance, let's say a splash chases and kills you here, right? Like, what's something that they might want to do if the splash walks over here and kills you? Like, where would they play?
They'd flank around to our left, their right.
Yeah, like kind of go around this area here. And so one thing that retreating does that I think people don't realize a few times is it puts the enemy player to walk in the same spot that they already wanted to go. So it's like, rather than having to detour to kill you and then go into the right position, they're able to do it at the same time. And so if you retreat, you need to be able to get out alive. Because if you go backward and die here, it's worse than you, say, going to the side and dying. Like, even if it seems the same thing, because it puts them in a better spot. If they have to move away, at the very least, they now have to walk over again, and they lose more time. So
it's like Ren was talking about earlier on a Splat Zones game where they're taking fights to force the enemy team to either look at them or look at the zone.
Yeah, it's a very similar concept.
If you can wedge yourself into a position where you won't just immediately be splatted and you can keep the enemy's attention someplace other than where they're trying to go, you can often actually defend more successfully than you would by retreating along the objective line, because the opponents need to look in two different places at once as they move forward, relieving pressure from your teammates as they spawn in and move up the objective line. The position I abandon here on our bunker and museum is one such position, because it forces players to look at me instead of my teammates who are regrouping at our clam basket. There, I need to jump actually.
Also, don't do this.
Watch out.
Just try to wall and stay here, or like walk backward. At this point, like if you have a retreat option, it's just going to take you out of the game. And you're also holding an angle. Like, yes, you're getting damage and it's very scary, but look at this. They're shooting you. They're throwing burst bombs at you. They're throwing suction bombs at you. Every one of those things is not being thrown here anymore. Like, the pressure on your teammates is being alleviated. You're a player down and they can't move because they're having to throw everything in their arsenal on you. That is huge right now. They should be pushing, but they can't. You keep that attention. The second you jump out, okay, resource gone. Push. They're going to just walk in.
I've got way already.
And now, the main thing is, like, now you can't go back there as easily. Or, like, ideally you shouldn't be able to go back there because someone on their team can just walk there now. Now you lose that angle. And so even though you backed up and kept yourself alive, you're now in a harder situation than if you tried to fight that out.
On maps with so many choke points and so few routes to get around them, there's actually more value in these specific scenarios, these off-angle defensive positions, in staying there and fighting a situation out than in retreating and protecting your life more carefully. Because if you give up space, you lose that off-angle pressure, and now the fight you could have taken further forward becomes a much more difficult fight when the opponents reach your basket with all their specials, the entire team in full view in front of them, and no off-angle pressure available to the defense. The end of the same game is a perfect example. The enemy team retreats from a disadvantageous fight, and they end up retreating so far that when they finally do fight, they actually end up worse off.
Hydra.
Right, there we go. Brush spot, back mid.
Like, this is good. Like, right here. You don't even have the wolf, but you see the power this angle provides right here? Look at their team. See that? Like, your bucket just walks in. They're like, I don't want to pick one in. And they run away. And now you have this here. No specials had to be used. Nothing. They just gave you a part of the map.
Breaking out the fire.
And now this is really good.
I'm on their plat.
Like, this is now a much better situation. And because you didn't have to use your specials for this part of the map, now you still have tri-strike. Like, now your strike goes out, and you can walk forward on the right, get a kill. All of that just flows so nicely. Just from that one tiny positioning difference here, set up this entire thing. It snowballs that fast.
I'm flanking behind.
Got one.
Wailing.
Nice, whale.
There we go.
Oh, you guys
One on
got
left,
this.
rush.
No,
Got
I
him.
didn't get there in time.
Oh my god.
T-Tech in
There's a
front.
I'm right below there.
Oh,
You scored that?
nice.
Ooh, wow.
This is a big part of why Splatoon 3 is very snowbally, because a lot of teams will not understand the map design. They'll give up these choke points for free and not realize that by retreating, we're not being safer. We actually just made this fight way harder, and you guys capitalized off that. And understanding that kind of thing is so important to know, because this whole fight went in your favor because you were able to push up in mid. If they were able to hold this left side, I don't think you guys would have gotten this game, because you would have needed to use too many specials to get here and not here.
Now, this is a fairly advanced concept. There are some weapons that are simply not well equipped to lodge themselves into corners and take these kinds of fights. I sat up on bunker with a short-ranged shooter, a pretty mobile weapon that has a splash wall, and I still got intimidated out of staying there. I've still got some confidence to build in it. You'll need to be able to skirmish very effectively, which takes awareness and technical skill. It takes good recognition of how each map works, which corners you can tuck into that are both safe and off the objective line the way you want them to be. It's also a tactic that will work better in coordinated play than in solo queue, because the window for your team to follow up on the distraction you're causing may be pretty small, and solo queue players may not notice it the same way your teammates definitely will when they hear on VC how terrified you currently are. But in a game with choke points like this, wedging yourself in at an awkward angle and sticking it out to slow the enemy team down is sometimes the only means you have of defending, short of bullying all 4 of your players through a single passageway. And against something like a crab tank, that's not something you can expect to pull off without casualties. Going forward, I'm going to have a more complex understanding of how to interact with the objective line, and more specifically, I'll be thinking a lot more about how to make myself a thorn in the enemy's side when my team is retreating, instead of giving them everything they want for free.